Why do we have to wait till Thursday? For the first time since 1979, the Toronto Maple Leafs and Montreal Canadiens will be playing against each other in a Stanley Cup playoff series. This will be a playoff preview video looking at every single angle of the series that I can think of, with a bit more of a Leaf slant. I don't know what tipped you off, but we're going to talk a lot about the Montreal Canadiens as well. Where do we even start? Well, how about we start here? Even though the Habs and Leafs haven't played for a few days, and they're not scheduled to play for a few more, two of the Habs actually did play just before I shot this video, because Carey Price and Brendan Gallagher were both sent down to Laval in the AHL, and coincidentally, they were taking on the Toronto Marlies. Now, obviously, neither player is bad. It's just this is a conditioning stint because they've been injured. Both teams have had a bunch of injuries down the stretch. How did they do in the game? I'm glad you asked. Shout out to Nick Barden for this. He does a great job covering every Marlies game, and this was definitely an opportunity for him to shine. Hey, remember Frederik Andersen's conditioning stint in the AHL and we all freaked out about it? Carey Price allows 2 goals on the Marlies' first 4 shots. Yep, that's tough. What a story. The 2 goal scorers, by the way, Stefan Nason was one of them. He got to play some NHL action with the Leafs, came over from the Sharks in the Nick Foligno deal, the 3-way deal. But the other goal scorer was Bobby McMahon, scoring just his 2nd goal of the AHL season. Who knows what's going to happen in this guy's career, but forever he'll be able to say he scored a goal on Carey Price, which is pretty cool. Kind of like Andersen's conditioning stint though, Carey Price started rough but got better. Once again from Nick Barden. Caden Primo is in net for the Laval Rocket to start the 3rd period, which means Carey Price stats, he finishes his night with an .866 save percentage, stopping 13 of 15 shots by the Marlies. Habs fans and Leafs fans alike, what do we read into that? Not a whole lot. Being a good AHL player doesn't always translate to being a good NHL player, and it's actually the other way around as well, especially with goalies. The defense in front of you isn't nearly as crisp as it is in the NHL, and shots that you expect to be absolutely wired actually fool you because they're slower. It actually reminds me of a conversation I had with David Ayres when I was shooting a video with him, because he'll get scored on playing with his buddies, and they're like, oh hey, I just scored on David Ayres. Meanwhile, he's used to stopping like 300 NHL bombs per practice. So Leaf fans don't get too comfortable, and Habs fans don't freak out. All you need coming out of this is for Carey Price to be feeling good. He doesn't even necessarily have to be the starter when the series begins. Is Carey Price at 90% better than Jake Allen at 100? Probably. Okay, what about Carey Price at 70? 60. The Habs acquired Jake Allen for situations like this. So will Carey Price start game 1 against the Leafs? I don't know, but I would bet by the time the series is all said and done, he'll be the starter. And Brendan Gallagher's sort of the same thing. It doesn't matter how many points he gets or if he gets a hat trick or whatever. It's just, is he feeling good? He was playing feisty though, which you'd expect out of him. He tried to throw some hits, including one on Timothy Liljegren. Liljegren actually planted him right on his bottom. We'll get back to the Habs roster later. Let's talk about the Leafs. The Toronto Maple Leafs are going to head into the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs with a lineup they have never seen before, including a player who has never played a game for them. But it still looks pretty good. Would you like to see it? From Sportsnet's Chris Johnston, free of salary cap restraints, here are the Leafs practice lines. First line, Zach Hyman, Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner. Second line, Nick Foligno, John Tavares, William Nylander. Third line, and this is where it gets real weird, Alexander Kerfoot on the wing, Riley Nash, and Ilya Mikheyev. Fourth line, grumpy old men, Joe Thornton, Jason Spezza, Wayne Simmons. The defense pairs, Morgan Riley, TJ Brody, Jake Muzzin, Justin Hall, Rasmus Sandin, and Travis Dermott. Jack Campbell is the confirmed starter, as said by Sheldon Keefe, with Freddie Andersen backing him up. So, first thing is first, Jack Campbell is starting game 1 of this series, confirmed by Sheldon Keefe. We can put that little drama to bed. Well, what if Campbell struggles in game 1? And what about the back-to-back that is game 3 and 4? Those are on back-to-back nights. Well, I don't know. Why don't we cross that bridge when we get there? Jack Campbell is the starter for the Toronto Maple Leafs heading into these playoffs. Done and done. So, what do we take from the lines? Well, Zach Hyman is back. He's playing his first game in game 1 since taking a knee injury from Alex Edler in that infamous Canucks game. Hyman, Matthews, Marner is basically the best line the Leafs can throw at you. They've tried a super line in the past of Tavares, Matthews, and Marner. It's more of a nuclear option late in games if you're losing, but from the beginning of the game onward, Hyman, Matthews, Marner, it's the best they got. Foligno, Tavares, Nylander shouldn't surprise anybody, even though Foligno played in a few different spots in the lineup in his short tenure as a Leaf so far. We all know he was acquired to be on that second line with Tavares and Nylander, provide some sandpaper, experience, etc. The third line is where it gets weird. So the shutdown line is essentially going to have no chemistry on account of they've never played together as a unit. Kerfoot and Mikheyev have played together a lot, but I don't remember a situation where they were ever both the wingers on the same line. Usually it was Kerfoot at center and Mikheyev playing on the left or right, didn't really matter. So who the heck is Riley Nash? Well, Leaf fans should know. Leaf fans should actually be well acquainted with Riley Nash because he has beaten them in the Stanley Cup playoffs twice. He was on the 2018 Boston Bruins, who defeated the Leafs in 7. Who would have thought? And he was also on the Columbus Blue Jackets last year in the bubble. Now, Justin Bourne used to play college hockey, played in the ECHL, the AHL. He also happens to work for Sportsnet and used to work for the Toronto Marlies. He had an opinion on Riley Nash and what he brings to the Leafs. He said, so for Leaf fans wondering what to expect from Riley Nash, think Frederic Gauthier offensively, but actually very effective defensively. He's like the ultimate low-event guy. Whether that's a good, bad, or other thing, I don't exactly know, but he excels at making nothing happen when he's on the ice. If you think the rest of your roster can get you enough goals, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Deep in the playoffs, there will be opposition lines you'd very much like to quiet down. So it's a tool the team clearly desired. And this is the thing. The chemistry issue, I think, will sort itself out. I think both teams are going to have chemistry issues with guys who haven't been in the lineup in forever. But what the Leafs have really lacked for a long time is a true shutdown line. And what the Leafs had a couple years ago against the Bruins is this line of Hyman, Tavares, and Marner. And they shut down the Bruins' top line was how it was pitched. That should very not be a shutdown line, for crying out loud. Marner finished top 5 in points this season. John Tavares is John Tavares and had a 47-goal season. Zach Hyman has had back-to-back 30-goal pace seasons. That's not a shutdown line. That's a great line that you're supposed to attack the other team with. If this can be an effective shutdown line for the Leafs, they have a fantastic line with the Matthews line they can throw out there. They have a fantastic line with the John Tavares line that they can throw out there. And they have what would have been a fantastic first line in like 2012, but it's still a great line in 2021 with Thornton, Spezza, and Simmons. Nash can be a leader, a face-off guy, a sandpaper guy. He's got Kerfoot there, who's actually a pretty good playmaker and really annoying and really fast. And Ilya Mikheyev, who, say what you want about him offensively, is one of the fastest players in the National Hockey League. He's not particularly nasty, but he's underratedly strong, and he's added just a sneaky little bit of sandpaper that wasn't there last year. So I can't tell you if it's a great line because I've never seen it. None of us have. But it's got the potential. And if it works, you're going to have a hard time beating the Leafs because anything you throw at those top 2 lines, they should beat you. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. That's why they played the games. But in theory, and that's what we're talking about, this should be a very good setup for them. Keeping in mind that if things don't work out, there's still Spezza who can move up the lineup. There's Adam Brooks you can insert in. There's Engvall you can insert in. And all of those guys can do the wing or center. I didn't even mention Alex Galchenyuk, but he's not there to be a defensive option. He's there if someone in the top 6 gets hurt, and he can score. We know he can. We've seen him do it, and he's added an extra hardworking, nasty bit to his game to try to stick in the NHL. The fourth line speaks for itself. You know what to expect out of Wayne Simmons. Joe Thornton has been a miserable, mean person for like a month and a half now, and Jason Spezza straight up outscored Josh Anderson this year. He had 30 points. Now, how many of those 12 guys I just mentioned are playing at 100% right now? It's hard to say. They were pretty cautious with Foligno. Hyman was held out of the lineup probably longer than he needed to for salary cap reasons. Nash, beyond the fact that he's starting with a new team, has been injured. But you can't live your life like that. You just got to assume the Leafs are the way they look. And up front, they look pretty good. Now, on the back end, well, it's quite interesting. Jake Muzzin and Justin Hall you usually know what to expect out of them. Muzzin has had some off games. Most of it was with that face shield bubble on his head. He really struggled with that. Justin Hall's been playing with one too. I imagine it's going to be gone real soon if it's not already. I mean, to me, that's the Leafs' first pair. They're the most dependable in defensive situations, and they're actually pretty underrated offensively as well. You just trust them. Justin Hall had a terrible moment in Game 5 against the Columbus Blue Jackets last year. I'll chalk that up to one moment, and don't forget, Jake Muzzin was not in that due to injury. The Riley-Brody pairing, where do we start? Morgan Riley has been dismal defensively at times this season. TJ Brody has been an absolute ray of sunshine defensively. Offensively, Brody hasn't really brought much, and part of that, I think, is Morgan Riley has just been green light all season long. And part of the reason he's been green light is Brody has been very dependable defensively, but also the Leafs forwards have this new commitment to defense. They usually, almost always, not always, but almost always, come back in support of a defenseman who's pinching. Now, it's great that Riley's green light and everything. He's a very good offensive defenseman. But if the Leafs are going to have success in these playoffs and against the Montreal Canadiens, he's got to shut it down in his own end. Then there's the third pair, which is interesting, and I'm not sure what to expect. So right now, it's Rasmus Sandin on the left, Travis Dermott, the lefty, on the right, because Zach Bogosian has been injured. But today, Zach Bogosian was no longer wearing the red no-contact jersey and supposedly has been cleared to play. Does that mean he'll be in Game 1? I have no idea. And I'm not even sure, did he even play a game with Sandin? If he did, it wasn't many. So it's got to be a very interesting video session for the Habs in preparation for the series, because the Leafs are going to be throwing a lot of things at them that they've never really actually had for long stretches this season. Hyman and Matthews-Marner, there's tons of footage on them. Foligno, Tavares, Nylander have barely played together. Nash has not played there at all, and the grumpy old men line didn't get a ton of time together this season. In terms of scouting, the Leafs' top four is the most dependable thing. They've been together almost the entire season. It's just that third pair of Sandin and Bogosian, which you'd think the Habs would try to target, but you're not really sure what they are. And then last but not least, there's Jack Campbell. I mean, what else does he have to prove? Other than, well, getting stops in the playoffs. He came into the season as the backup for Freddie, and he played pretty well while Freddie struggled, but Freddie is still the starter. Then they basically trade injuries for a while, but once Freddie is out of the lineup for a while, Campbell takes over. And okay, we're going to manage you, we're going to baby you a little bit because you're coming off an injury, but then at some point when he was feeling good, the Leafs gave him the ball and he ran with it. And he broke an NHL record for 11 games to start the season and basically did not lose. Put it this way, Jack Campbell started the season as the Leafs backup and was injured for decent stretches at least twice. But he still ended up with as many wins as the Anaheim Ducks and 2 more than the Buffalo Sabres. He was 1 win behind Columbus and 2 behind New Jersey and Detroit. You can't win them all. So that's the Leafs roster. What do the Habs have to offer? Well, first of all, this caught my eye. From Arpon Basu, if you're not following him, you need to. No change at Canadiens practice Sunday. Michael Frolik, Cole Caulfield, and Jesperi Kotkaniemi skating in gray jerseys as extras. Now, a lot of Leafs Twitter perked up when this was tweeted out by a few people, and for good reason. Those guys are good. Frolik, I don't know a ton about at this point in his career, but like, Kotkaniemi, I know he struggled at times this season, but he's gonna be good. And Cole Caulfield started his career with 2 OT winners and was half a point a game. I mean, take it from this Leafs fan, Cole Caulfield's straight up good, like now. He's going to be great, but he's at very least good now. So, okay, who's on their team then? This is what the Habs had at practice a couple days ago. Thomas Tatar, Philip Deneau, and Brendan Gallagher as their top line. Their second line, Tyler Toffoli, Nick Suzuki, and Joel Armia. Third line, Corey Perry, Eric Stahl, and Josh Anderson. And then Paul Byron, Jake Evans, and Arturi Lehkonen. So obviously the Gallagher conditioning stint is just to get him in a game. He's gonna play. There's also this observation from Eric Engels just watching him in the minors. He was getting a couple tips in front. Again, that stint is not about getting a hat trick. It's just getting back to feeling normal. So the top line, Tatar, Deneau, and Gallagher. 5-on-5, possession-wise, defense-wise, offense-wise, that's a really good line. They're annoying. They're offensively talented. They're defensively responsible. They're a coach's dream. I would assume Dominic Ducharme is going to try to staple that line to the Matthews, Marner, Hyman line, but you never know. Coaches like to change their mind. Tyler Toffoli, Nick Suzuki, and Joel Armia is another really good mix of players. A little bit of inexperience in there with Nick Suzuki, but I don't think he feels that way, and I don't think the Habs do either. And this has got to be the swagger about the team. The Leafs did not win their qualifying round last year. The Habs did, including a really young bunch that included Nick Suzuki. He's got to be feeling like, well, I know the playoffs, these guys don't. Yeah, they've played more than me, but I've won more than them. That's just a really good dog on a bone line, and obviously Toffoli knows how to put it in the back of the net, and Nick Suzuki, if he gets going, is going to be a problem. That third line, there is no subtlety there. Corey Perry, Eric Stahl, and Josh Anderson. They are there for abuse. They are grizzled. They have seen it all. They're going to beat you up. They're going to grind you along the boards. They're going to come up with crafty plays because, let's not forget, they actually have quite a bit of talent as well, and they are going to make the front of your net a miserable place to be. And now you're seeing why it'd be pretty nice if Zach Bogosian was in Game 1. We all know what Corey Perry's about. I'm pretty sure I saw this. I can't confirm it, but I'm pretty sure in the last Leafs-Habs game, Corey Perry, first shift of the game, he crashes Jack Campbell, and he mouthed to him all night. I mean, he's been in the league a long time and won the Hart Trophy. You'd think he'd have better lines than that, but it conveys the message all night. That is the all-night line. And Josh Anderson said there's no team he'd rather be playing than the Toronto Maple Leafs. You know these guys are chomping at the bit to do something. And that fourth line, do not sleep on it, of Paul Byron, Jake Evans, and Arturi Lehkonen. They are fast and annoying. A pretty good fourth line. There's not a ton of teams in the playoffs with a line that fast and effective. The Habs D pairs are a little more interesting to get a read on because this, from the legend John Liu, we got a first pair of Edmondson Petrie, second of Kulak and Sherratt, and third of Romanov and Gustafsson with Merrill as the seventh. Did you pick up on the very key name missing? Yeah, it's Shea Weber, another guy on the long list between both teams who has been battling injury down the stretch. Now, I texted Andrew Berkshire to help me figure out what this is going to look like because it sounds like Shea Weber is going to play Game 1. Sherratt Weber makes the most sense. They were a pairing for, I think, all year. You know what to expect. They're going to try to bury a carbon fiber stick in your back every single time you attack the net. Joel Edmondson, Jeff Petrie. Edmondson is pretty mean, maybe not as mean as those other two, but he's certainly big, and Jeff Petrie, along with his size, is a lethal weapon offensively. And then his best guess at the third pair is Kulak, who I think had a goal against the Leafs in their final game, and John Merrill, who they got from the Red Wings at the deadline. But if Shea Weber is not back for Game 1, it looks completely different. Without doing a pairing-by-pairing breakdown, they're not subtle. They're big, they're going to try to beat you up, and they have heavy shots. And this is the slightly frightening thing about the Habs, especially if they get goaltending, and you saw it with Pittsburgh last year in the bubble. They are a built-for-the-playoffs type team. If the Leafs can burn them with speed, maybe get a sweep in there, or a 5, or a no, you don't want to get to 6, and you definitely don't want to get to 7. You see what I'm saying? The one thing with Jake Allen is he appears to be Jake Allen. He had a .927 save percentage in 24 games with the Blues last year. That's a really good backup. But he was a .907 in 29 games this season. 2 years ago with the Blues, he was a .905, and 3 years ago, he was a .906 with a much bigger workload. And that's what he is. He's kind of a league average goaltender with the potential to give you real spectacular games. Carey Price is really hard to get a read on. He was a .901 goalie this season, which is, it's not good. It's definitely not as good as Jake Allen, but he was a .936 in the bubble. But he's coming off of injury. It's an enormous wild card in the series. And that's where I'll get to my opinion on what's going to happen. Obviously, looking at the background behind me, I'm a Leafs fan. Looking at what I'm wearing, I'm a Leafs fan. But don't accuse me of being a biased Leaf fan for saying they're going to win. As a Leafs fan, it is my job and instinct to have nothing but dread. And listen, they play the games for a reason. We don't know what's going to happen in this series yet. They haven't played it. But, logically, there is no reason the Leafs should not be the favorites in this series. They finished first in their division. They played the Montreal Canadiens 10 times this season and won 7 of them. Why shouldn't they be the favorites? It's a league where anybody can beat anybody. Didn't the Red Wings win the season series against the Bruins last season? Anybody can beat anybody. There's only 16 teams left and none of them suck. But winning 7 out of 10, finishing first in the division by a decent margin, and definitely a decent margin over the Habs, there's no reason to think the Leafs can't come out with this series victory for the first time since 2004. But Steve, what about the power play? Oh, well, let's not mince words. The Leafs power play sucks. It used to not suck, and they've had a lot of luck against the Montreal Canadiens this season, but over the past 2 months, it has sucked. And it's kind of difficult to get a read on how they're going to look in these playoffs because practice the last couple days, they've gone with a bunch of different formations. They've tried putting Nylander and Tavares on the second unit, then they loaded it up again. The one thing that was consistent, though, Morgan Rielly on the second unit, Rasmus Sandin on the top one. And he's a really good player there. I like him. Maybe he can turn it around. But in the playoffs, if you're not the better team 5-on-5, you're going to struggle. Looking at this team's 12 forwards versus Montreal's. Looking at their 6 defensemen versus their 6 defensemen. Looking at their goalie versus whoever Montreal's goalie happens to be. The Leafs are going to win this series. Right? As a Leaf fan, it's going to be impossible for me to fully relax until I see it with my own 2 eyes and hear it with my own 2 ears. But everything that has led us to this moment this season says the Leafs should win this series. Are the Habs going to be pushovers? Absolutely not. Do I think the Leafs are going to sweep them? I very highly doubt it. But the Leafs should win this series. If the Leafs win game 1, they should definitely win this series. If they lose game 1, it's going to be a lot more difficult, but they still should. This Montreal Canadiens team has sneaky skill. They have way more skill than they're credited for. Josh Anderson had the hot start and then completely tanked. He is a player built for the playoffs, though. However, the Montreal Canadiens strategy, I think, is going to be to try to bully the Toronto Maple Leafs like teams have in recent years. This team, so far this season, has shown that won't work this year. Put it this way, if you were watching the Leafs for the first time this season and you didn't have the mental scar tissue that this team has given you over the years, you would 100% think the Leafs were going to win this series. But you do have that mental scar tissue, so it's tough. I'm not going to go yelling and screaming about hoisting trophies over their head just yet, but this season, with this series, the Toronto Maple Leafs should, for the first time since 2004, win a playoff round. But that's why they play the games, and they start Thursday. So, what do you think? Leafs fans and Habs fans alike, anybody else? Leave a comment in the comment box down below. But for now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends that the Steve Dangle podcast has switched to 3 episodes per week. We made it official today. We are going to be uploading Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. What does that mean for Hat Picks and Dang? It's glad you asked. Tuesdays and Thursdays.